cool.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew, thanks for coming on Burn the Ship. We're an entrepreneurial podcast. We love to have guests on and tell us about their experience and their journey in their entrepreneurial business. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what company you have and how you got there.
So my name is Andrew Rodriguez. I've been working in the cannabis space for 6 years now, and I launched my own dispensary consulting company in 2022. Of how it kind of got there is I was learning a lot in my master's degree for medical cannabis science and inspired me to want to actually create my own business because it was totally attainable. My father has his own business as well, so it always was a dream and a passion of mine to be able to open my own as well. And through that avenue, I've been able to explore many opportunities, work with clients within the state of New Jersey, and help launch my very first client within a year of having my business open. So it's definitely been quite the journey.
That's awesome. You think like, what do you do? Like bang to bullet license and how to get the equipment, the whole thing.
The whole thing. So from obtaining the license to navigating regulatory concerns, logos, websites, build outs, you name it, I'd like to be involved.
That's cool. That's cool. So what made you decide to go the business or the consulting aspect instead of doing your own dispensary or doing your own grow, that kind of thing?
That's actually a great question. I thought kind of within the landscape of the industry and descheduling of cannabis that most of these things are going to be kind of a dime a dozen. It's going to be like a 7-Eleven. And yeah, they'll make good money, but as far as my main goal and aspiration in this industry is to change the entire industry. It's not to take part. I'm here to take over.
That's right. Yeah, no, I when I spoke to we're a merchant service provider. That's what pays the bills. It's what pays these light bills and all the cameras over here. But I actually went out about it was about 5 6 years ago and went to Colorado. And just knocked on doors, knocked on dispensaries because at that point in time I could do payments in the space, and I still can depending on what it is, where it is, that kind of thing. But being in the processing space, and Roderick can confirm this, but we see just so many different businesses and so many different peoples, and they're in a different part of their journey. They might be in their first month or my first year. They might be a 20-year veteran in it. But what I really noticed is what you do is needed sorely because a lot of these people just really loved cannabis and they thought that they could open up a business. And I always tell these guys for years, just because you can cook a donut doesn't mean you should own a bakery. And I mean, I talked to lots of them, and a lot of these people were just not equipped to
Mhm.
run a business, and they were drowning. Now you would go to the next one, and the dude or the girl had it together. It was like they had been in business before, but I met these one folks in Colorado Springs, and they had like they had been in like the restaurant game for like 30 years, and they were just GMs. They didn't work for themselves. They like cashed in all their 401k, like they sold their house to start this business, and man, I felt sorry for them. I felt sorry for them. So I mean, what do you when you talk to people, what do you qualify as like, hey, this is what you have to do, and or maybe you shouldn't do this?
There are definitely some preliminary questions that I ask. A big one is asking, is this going to be a part-time or retirement venture? Because most people that look into this industry as far as a venture want to be able to do it to just retire. It's not exactly aligning with the mindset of what it takes to make this business successful. It's 100-hour weeks. So if you're not prepared to do that, you want a retirement, maybe you should look at the stock market or any other thing that's more passive, because it requires a lot of hands-on implementation and running the business, and there's more complications to the business due to the regulatory stance and the constantly evolving. Each state have their own rules and regulations, so it makes it tough. I also make sure to ask if capital is an issue. It costs on average to open a dispensary $1 million. So if you don't have $1 million lying around and you're not prepared to be under the stress of paying back investors within a timeline for $1 million, probably wouldn't want to venture into this opportunity. And then you get into growing and manufacturing, that's millions of dollars. So a lot of people I think are similar to Icarus, where they want to fly close to the sun and experience the heat of the industry, but the wax starts to melt very quickly when you have those conversations.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, when you were sharing with Jay about Jay was sharing about a lot of these business owners need the assistance. I wanted to go back a step because where you are is a unique thing. It is not like I have spoken to a lot of people who have an MS in cannabis. So, as you were finishing up school and you were getting going, what event took place that made you dive into it? What made you choose this? What event said, okay, I'm going to go research further in cannabis like this?
That's a great question. I actually was 3 times college dropout. I started with cybersecurity, did IT, IS. I was very big into technology, but then as things kind of transitioned, I realized that that wasn't really my future, and I'm glad I made the switch because AI really kind of took a lot of jobs out of the market for that. But I wanted to more so pursue something that I'm more into sales, marketing, and that kind of more fascinates me. So my brother, who was at the University of Maryland, he actually told me about this degree coming out. And I was like, I was dropped out of college. I was selling cars and doing a lot of other side jobs to try and make the ends meet. And he inspired me to actually go back to school and not be a 3 times college dropout and get my master's. And realistically, I was already in the industry at this time and I wanted to invest more into myself. And the cool thing is that Maryland, my home state, was the first school, University of Maryland School of Pharmacy, to offer a cannabis specific master's degree in the entire world. So I was in the, I think, third cohort of students, and to be able to explore that and push myself further in the industry, I've been doing it ever since I turned 21 and I'm 27 now. So it's been a life-changing industry for me. And to not take on further education about the plant, I think would be not a good use of my time if I decide to continue to be in this industry and career path.
Yeah, definitely appreciate you sharing that. What it shows the audience is that you are an early innovator. You saw something that was new and you went ahead and grabbed hold of it early. Now you're putting yourself in a position to be a leader in the industry. And for this podcast, what we do is we try to share with other entrepreneurs some of the skills that you've had, that could help them continue to go forward. Now that you've been in it for 6 years, what would be one or two of the skills you would say that you have acquired and you're nurtured that they could, use in their own business?
I think one of the biggest ones off the top of my head is being able to be flexible and persistent. So persistence eliminates resistance, and we deal with a lot of resistance in our daily lives. But if in your career path you simply don't take no for an answer, take things as is, question things, be able to improve it. And I think the deepest thing within this industry or any industry is to really care more than your fellow coworker, fellow person. And I've always found in every position that I've been in occupationally that I've cared more than others around me and making sure that I'm doing the best that I can every day. And a lot of people may come to work, they want to clock in, clock out, and just get their money. That's not really how I work. I think of in a boss mindset because my dad's a business owner and he's kind of taught me to think in that way and how I can actually get for a year's worth of time doing 3 years worth of work in a year. So it's kind of doing more work each day that I can learn more. And the beauty of the cannabis space is it's allowed me, due to all of the inconsistencies, poor business practices, to get involved into every part of the business. So I think being an entrepreneur as well is kind of true to that, that you're going to be rejected all the time. You're going to be told no, you're going to have to deal with hardship. But if you keep your chin up, know that you're a good person, that you're trying to do well for the industry, things will happen. They just will.
What do you said on average it's $1 million to start a dispensary. What do you think the ROI on that is?
You're talking in like the first year, first 3 years.
I mean, my just as a principle thing, I always say most of all businesses are 3 to 5 years on making money back. But I didn't know, and obviously it depends on where you are. What I get that because if you're on a really really good corner, with a lot of traffic, you're probably going to get there faster. But what do you think on an average?
So what I have found in my experience is within the first 6 months, you should be profitable. I'm not saying paying off all the debt, but you should be profitable where your income is exceeding your expenses. Then within the first year to 2 years, first year ideally, all investors should be paid back. I know it's a lot of money, but if you're doing well, depending on what state you're in, that should be totally possible. And then the return on the investment, ideally, if you're hitting about $5 to $6 million net after all your expenses per year, all partners should be millionaires within the first 3 years.
That's awesome. Where do you find the easiest states, the least resistance in the states? Because I know some in the municipalities and states, some of them are a lot harder to get through than others. What do you think the easiest states to open in is?
So what I've seen is you do have a lot of West Coast where they expound a bunch of licenses to people and they give them a lot of opportunity to open licenses. Whereas you have other states where they kind of restrict it, like Florida, Maryland. Jersey's been pretty lenient on giving out licenses, but the main issue, I'd say, as far as complications or not, depending on the state, is those understanding the political landscapes. With election cycle right now, it makes things even more complicated because you have state
Sure.
politics and federal politics. And so I found that each state kind of has its own quirks. I wouldn't say that necessarily certain states are easier or better than others. It's more so determining which one has the greatest amount of market share, what type of regulations are in place, if the state is medical or recreational or both, and how many licenses that they've already given out, and if the supply chain, the growers and manufacturers, are enough to actually supply the dispensaries so that you can properly become profitable within your first year.
Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting. What do you think that the deregulation or lowering it has done with all the states? Because some of the states don't give a shit about the federal anyways. So I don't know how did it do. Is it? I mean, I guess it can't hurt that they lowered it, but I mean, like, why don't even just take it all the way off? What the hell are they doing?
I'm in agreement there. I do think that this might be a little bit of politics as well before the election. Who knows? I mean, we
Yeah.
could have done this 4 years ago. We could have done this 8 years ago. The cannabis space has been around for over now 25 years, ever since California. But trying to figure out what this will do, we will definitely see what comes from it. The biggest thing that I'm kind of apprehensive of is pharmaceutical companies jumping in and kind of sweeping up the market, and then it becomes a box store thing. So you're buying cannabis in a CVS, whatever, because all of these licensed dispensaries had to go through years of hardship, financial issues, and regulatory hurdles. Whereas if they blow it out of the water in that regard, it makes things tougher. Now, if you compare the other Schedule III drugs that are in the schedule with cannabis, if and when that happens, you have codeine, you have steroids. So it's like these are certain things that I don't think necessarily could be considered to a plant like cannabis. It's naturally occurring. We also have a system in our body that creates cannabis internally. So to be able to restrict something from the human population is like restricting cilantro or mint. I know that mint and cilantro are not psychoactive like cannabis is, but I am in agreement with you that it should be completely taken off the schedule. It's a plant. It never should have been put there in the first place, and definitely not to that severity. I'm not saying there shouldn't be structure and
Yeah.
regulations and uniform laws, but I do believe that the rescheduling is not even close to where we need to be in the industry yet.
For sure, but it's wild. You said, steroids and codeine. There was a lot of on that same schedule. There's a lot of drugs on there that you're like, that's not the same thing. I mean, Vicodin was on there.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the same schedule as marijuana now.
Mm-hmm.
So I was super surprised of what was even in that classification with it, with cannabis. It was wild to me. I'm like, oh my god, that's insane that you can even say that they're the same. You know what I mean? I always thought that I know pharmaceutical, they're going to have their hands on, try to get their hands wrapped around everything, but I always really thought that old tobacco was going to get in the game when everything lifted, because they got all that old money. And Philip Morrison and R.J. Reynolds would probably swoop in and just start buying up dispensaries left and right.
Yeah, you're definitely going to see consolidation across the industry. I definitely see that coming, because money talks, and that's just kind of how people are going to just kind of be done with the industry. They built up their company, they want to sell it at this point. But
It's just like breweries, good breweries, they end up selling to the big beer companies, and good for them. That's what it's for, right? That's going to set off in the sunset.
exactly. But as long as there's not the biggest issue that I see with companies that shift from one industry to another, their motives are not aligned with what the cannabis space is. We're here to help veterans, people with mental health, chronic pain ailments, symptoms that should be able to be treated naturally instead of dealing with it through the opioids and the
Sure.
opioid crisis. And when you have that kind of alluding to more issues that come about where it's more of a money thing than a health thing.
Well, it's always going to be about the money to those big companies, and I think that where there's good, there's bad for sure. I mean, I think overall we need the mom and pop can or dispensaries to stay in, and like you see the resurgence of all the breweries coming in. 20 years ago there wasn't a lot of microbreweries, and now there's one on every corner. So I really think that the small mom and pop dispensaries will be around, but you're not going to stop big tobacco and pharmacies coming in there and waving their checks in front of their face, because they're going to take it. But it will drive the price down. It will make it cheaper to
Yeah.
purchase.
As long as the quality doesn't degrade, I'm okay with price compression, but it also reduces profit margins for dispensaries and growers alike, but more so the dispensaries because their margins are even thinner than what is on average. So it's just kind of an evolving cycle, but I do agree with you that things will become cheaper when the supply reaches the demand. But for, I'd say, probably at least the next 3 to 5 years, we're probably not going to see that too
I, I,
crazy in
I agree with you. Yeah, I
the
think
nation.
so.
Yeah. As we talk about time frames, and as you were growing the business, you're building it, you're formulating it in your mind, where do you see yourself down the line? I know you said you're 6 years in, just a couple years in on the actual business. Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? What do you want it to look like?
Um, wow. It's something I reflect on a lot. It's something I think about daily, trying to see where I'd like to go with my company, where I'd like to go within the industry. But my goal has always been aligned with what can I do in the current moment to change the industry forever and make an impact on the industry. So the uncertainty of it and new companies coming up, new softwares, new regulations. I'd like to maybe delve into some clinical research as well to be able to kind of put pen to paper as to, hey, this hasn't been clinically researched, but there is thousands and thousands of consumers that can contribute to this data being contributing to better health and wellness. And my main goal within the industry is creating ways that customers can actually come into a store, feel comfortable with their purchasing decision, and it works well with their body. The worst thing that happens in this industry is overpriced product, low quality that's for money grab, and product that is not properly recommended to the consumer because either A, they're all so busy because of how many customers they serve, they don't have enough staff. And I just want the industry to be better as a whole because we're here to heal people. We're not just here to sell cannabis. And that's kind of a deeper thing for me, and it always will be. So I don't really understand necessarily where my 3 to 5 year plan is, but I do know that I'm staying on that baseline of what I can do at any moment to change the industry for the better.
How are you acquiring clients right now?
So it's interesting. A lot of them have actually come from kind of word of mouth, whether it be through current opportunities that I'm working with or otherwise. Since my workload's a little heavy right now, I haven't posted anything necessarily on Fiverr, Upwork, or any of those sites, because if I get bogged down, I'm kind of taking away from current clients that I'm working with. And that's something that I don't want to do. So as I progress through these certain clients, get them launched, I will be able to kind of sit back a little bit and be like, okay, this is how much I can take on. This is how much I'm looking to take on. And then I'll kind of put myself out there a little bit more. But most of it has been through the old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
100%. Well, we really appreciate you being on Burn the Ship. We'd love to do another one in 6 months or a year to see where you are in your business. And tell everybody how to get a hold of you. Email, website, phone number, whatever somebody how to can contact you.
Absolutely. So as far as my website and my company name, it's Sativa Shopper. And you can go on there, and my email specifically is arod at sativashopper.com. And my phone number is also listed on the website. With best ways to reach me, I'd say email is the best way. And if you want to find me on LinkedIn, all of my social medias are tagged on my website.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it. We look forward to discussing more in the future.
Thank you,
Everybody be
guys.
kind to each other.